So once again, thank you. My name is Pedro Silva Baptista. I am naturally from Cape Verde, but I am also Portuguese. So I am a collaborative member of the Research Center in Political Science at the University of Minho. And 2 years ago, I was a Young African Leader Fellow at the European University Institute. So before diving into my main arguments, I would like to set the stage with Africa's geopolitical importance and development imperatives. We have nowadays a continent which is attracting global and regional powers, and this carries the risk of external agendas overriding long-term African interests. And then we have literature review revealing that education is crucial for mitigating these risks and promoting sustainable economic development. On the other hand, we have recent crises such as COVID-19, the war in Ukraine, all highlighting the urgent need for an education-focused development strategy, both capable of strengthening local production and research capacity. For example, in the agriculture sector, this sector is employing 60% of young workers in sub-Saharan Africa, which will be my main focus in terms of region. And according to the International Labour Organization, education is also crucial for agriculture innovation. So the key point and the key message is that the geopolitical dynamics in recent crises demonstrate education pivotal role in fostering sustainable development and resilience across essential sectors such as education itself, healthcare, food security, and so on. Now, in terms of methodology, so this presentation is coming out of a policy analysis that I have published to the European University Institute School of Transnational Governance. So the paper utilizes empirical data to explore how aligning education with labor market needs and local realities can unlock Africa's demographic dividend. So it combines quantitative indicators with policy analysis. So I use also a multi-sectoral strategy grounded in the triple helix model, meaning collaboration between academia, industry, and government, also to explore this analysis. And drawing on a 2023 United Nations brief, so my analysis highlights how the interplay of education, the interplay of and between education, demography, and youth empowerment shapes development in the continent. So in terms of the state of development in Africa, I would like to point out that we have persistent deficits. For example, inequality adjusted education index score was very low in 2022 on a score of 0 to 1. For example, internal factors such as political inequality compound these challenges, and according to human rights, this kind of perpetuate a cycle of underdevelopment. And also, according to IMF, 2.5% of annual GDP is lost to political instability in the region, which is quite impressive and hinders progress towards SDGs. And then we have poverty rising to 462 million, meaning that population growth is really outpacing poverty. But before, in 2019, already 35% of the population already lived below the $2.15 per day poverty line, and representing 60% of the world's extreme poor. So on top of this, we have unfavorable international lending practices costing Africa more than $60 billion annually, and illicit financial flows costing almost $90 billion a year. So My main argument is about the education crisis in the continent and the need for change. And why do I argue this? So we are facing a double burden. On the one hand, we have 90% learning poverty, meaning that 9 in 10 cannot read a single passage and understand it, which is impressive. And then we have over 100 million out-of-school children in the region. And according to the World Bank, illness, malnutrition, income deprivation are key factors. And on top of this, we have 35% of children dropping out of the primary school due to economic pressures, early marriage, and poor school facilities. And now I would like also to point out the case of Cape Verde. So we have a country, a Lusophone nation with one of the highest human development index. So according to our former education minister, even a teenager concluding sixth grade, so even for them, functional literacy is not guaranteed, which is quite impressive. Then we have UNESCO stating that Sub-Saharan Africa alone needs 15 million additional teachers by 2030 to meet SDG 4. So the key point is that there is an urgent need to elevate core learning competencies, reading, writing, basic math, logical reasoning, critical thinking, social awareness, while there is a severe shortage of qualified instruction. So education as the engine of transformation. So literature review reveals that strategic investment in education fosters knowledge, develops human capital, and fuels innovation. And then we have, for example, a policy paper from the World Bank underscoring its importance and strong correlations between education, improved employment, and health and earnings as well. Then we have the African Development Bank stating that this leads to better outcomes, not only for individuals, but also for communities. But for example, in terms of earnings, so there is a study showing that each additional year of schooling in sub-Saharan Africa increases individual earnings by an average of 12%, but then for women is almost 15%, which is quite impressive. But in contrary, we have World Bank stating that economic growth at the current pace alone has not significantly reduced poverty or generated sufficient employment. So the key message or the key point is that we need effective leadership and education policies that equip individuals with in-demand skills for emerging sectors such as renewable energy. And now I will focus a bit on energy transition, job creation, and education. So, for example, there is Outlook Africa Energy Outlook 2022, which was published by the International Energy Agency, stating that we have 60% of the world's best solar resources. In contrast, we have 43% of the population still lacking access to electricity, and most of them are living in the rural areas. This outlook also created a sustainable Africa scenario projecting 4 million new energy-related jobs by 2030. But of course, you need qualification. But for me, the most important data about this issue is related with a report by International Renewable Energy Agency in collaboration with African Development Bank, stating that a shift to modern renewable energy could increase GDP by 6.4%, but most importantly, improve the welfare index by 25%. So the key point in here is that, of course, access to affordable and reliable energy is key for livelihoods, public services such as healthcare, education itself, agriculture, productivity, food security, industrial development, and crisis resilience. And that is why I use the framework, the interplay, because it's almost interconnected among sectors. And this is even more important in a continent where 33 of the world's 47 least developed countries are, which is Africa, unfortunately. Now, in terms of population growth, development, and demographic dividend, I will be brief. So facts, we have 42% of the world's, we will have 42% of the world's young people by 2030. It is projected to rise to 1 billion by 2055. But by 2050, in the middle of the century, according to African Development Bank, we will have potentially almost 2 billion working age individuals, which is quite impressive. So we really need to speed up the education and the qualification. So then we have this huge bulge as a significant opportunity and a pressing challenges. And also I would like to share with you this report by the World Bank stating that current patterns generate only 3 million formal jobs and leading to what they have called jobless growth, which is important. So apart from this, we have enrollment in engineering, natural science, mathematics, statistics, plus ICT remaining very low, 10% and 5% respectively. And then we have future of job reports by the World Economic Forum showing and demonstrating that by 2030, we will need an additional 23 million STEM graduates in these fields. So the key point is that improving job prospects for youth and equipping them with relevant skills is essential, and realizing this potential depends on strategic investments in quality education. Bridging these gaps requires aligning education with market needs, investing in quality education, again, at all levels, and promoting lifelong learning. So my main argument and proposal is that Africa requires a Pan-African education movement. And why is that? For example, according to the Second Continental Report on the Implementation of Agenda 2063.
Right. Sorry, Pedro. Try to go quickly to conclusions. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry. So, I argue for an African Marshall Plan with the scope, ambition, and scale of the Marshall Plan, and I will. So this movement should have 3 pillars: government, private sector, because public-private partnership in Africa is mainly focused on infrastructure, and there is an opportunity to improve it to education as well. Diaspora, for example, ladies and gentlemen, we had diaspora sending over $100 billion in remittance to Africa. So they can be a source of skills, expertise, and so on. So again, very briefly, African Union has 2 main documents which articulates the vision for education. One is United African Union Concept on Education, 2022. This is quite impressive because it marks the first time education has been the African Union's theme of the year, reflecting what some scholars has described as an historical marginalization of education in main African policy focus. So before concluding, we have now momentum, G20 membership, South Africa with the presidency of G20, but success hinges on reconciling national agendas with collective aims, which underscores the need for a Pan-African education perspective, and education is key in this process. So briefly, the role of international partnerships. So the scale of required reform necessitates collaborative international partnerships, and in this, the Union can play a huge role. Back in very briefly to my point of why it's crucial education to be reimagined. and lessons from the Marshall Plan. So after the World War II, Europe faced devastation, this is clear. My point is that while Africa differs in terms of challenges, they are no less daunting. So we have 45 million people displaced by conflict, almost 800 lacking basic sanitation, over 400 million, 800 million lacking basic sanitation, over 400 million without safe drinking water, over 900 million without clean cooking fuels. So we really need to embrace this kind of ambition as a strategic necessity and really expanding access to foundational literacy. So to conclude, the immense potential of Africa remains unrealized due to fragmented leadership and the lack of unity and visions in terms of education, which calls for, in my view, a large-scale data-driven continental education movement grounded on scientific principles. So, and ordinary citizens play a big role because they can be agents of change if equipped with political literacy and critical thinking skills, making it imperative to reverse engineering the process of citizenship, entailing this idea of, okay, rights, but also, some role with the society. And then the point is that transforming the foundation of political culture pyramid requires a long-term program spanning decades, primarily centered on education. And according to my study, to conclude, so a Pan-African education movement built on equity, access, culturally relevant curricula, more suitable with African realities, sustainable funding is crucial, as education is really the pathway to prosperity, global agency, and a positive impact on Africa. Sorry for taking so long. So this was my brief